My name is Vivienne Williams, and I've been a full-time painter for more than 30 years. I was born in Wales and live in a small village in rural Carmarthenshire, overlooking the Towy Valley. I've been exhibiting work at the Thackeray Gallery since 2015, and this will be my fourth solo show. The last exhibition in April 2020 was the first of the lockdown shows, and although the paintings were hanging on the walls, no one could go inside and look at them. Looking at paintings online is better than nothing, of course, but it is a completely different experience and much more satisfying to stand in front of the real thing. I paint everything from my mind, my imagination and memory, preferring a flattened perspective with simplified forms. Colour, form and texture are equally important. The objects are rearranged and repainted many times until I feel the composition is balanced. There is an emotional significance invested in these apples and pears, jugs and bowls by returning to them again and again. And in this way, like working a seam, one painting naturally leads on to the next. Although my early work was colourful and expressive, I would say that Matisse and Kandinsky were the biggest influences at that time. As the still life paintings developed, I became preoccupied by a small number of objects which I could move around in different combinations. I particularly love the work of William Scott, Cedric Morris and Giorgio Morandi. I must admit I'm a bit obsessed with pears. For a year or two there was only one pear and one bowl, and slowly, not in a conscious way, other things emerged. Lemons, apples, strawberries, grapes, chilies, eggs. All the compositional possibilities had to be explored and internalized before something new could be introduced. These pieces of fruit are vehicles for colour, of course, so a pear can be green, but it could also be pink or black. It depends what colour works best. Actually, on the subject of eggs, when I was a child, I remember my aunt placing a pale blue egg into my hands, which was still warm, and somehow that is infused with the feeling I have each time I paint one. The Norwegian apples in one of the large paintings is based on a memory of a long ago youth hosteling trip where we ate perfectly white-skinned apples, deliciously crisp. Regrettably, I've never come across them again. So, the fruit and vessels are like the cast of characters to be moved about. The interesting surface texture is the result of many layers of paint. A simple, fairly thin sheet of paper becomes 20 times heavier by the time the painting is finished, with the feel and weight of old leather. It is a kind of ripening up process. I have a stack of these pieces in my workroom, and some have been there waiting to be completed for several years. It's always satisfying when a particularly old and heavy piece finally comes together. If you were to take an X-ray image, you would no doubt find many other paintings underneath, some of which can be seen as subtle ghost images in the brushwork. It all adds to the texture. Once I'm happy with the composition and feel that everything is balanced, the surface is energetically worked and reworked, scratched, sanded and stained. If the paper was too thin, this would not be possible. This is the moment when something exciting can happen. The subtleties of the colour relationships are explored and the painting can resolve itself. This process can be a bit of a battle, and when successful, almost a feeling that the painting has painted itself. I usually put the finished work away for a while before taking it out again to reassess. I know in the first second whether the painting is finished, or if it is possible to take it a bit further, which is not without risks, but is usually the right decision. It took many years before I was able to paint full-time, although I knew from an early age that that was what I was meant to do. I studied English at Reading University, where I completed an MA in the literary response to the visual arts. The following couple of years were spent teaching in Italy. 1 year living and working in Venice, my favourite place in the world, and another in nearby Padua. Looking back, I can appreciate how incredibly lucky I was to be able to travel around Italy just looking at art. After years of mainly reading books, it was like an explosion, a visual feast. All the treasures and colours of Venice could be seen and enjoyed every day. In Padua, the school where I taught was very close to the Arena Chapel, and it was easy to just call in and look at the wonderful frescoes by Giotto whenever I liked. I became interested in Tibetan Buddhism, and in the late 70s travelled overland through India, Sri Lanka, Thailand and Indonesia, ending up in Australia. I lived in Sydney for a couple of years, worked in an art gallery and attended life drawing and watercolour classes. I also sold my work for the first time. When I returned home, I decided to find out more about meditation and spend some time in a Buddhist community. This time lengthened into 7 years. It was a time to reflect, focusing on inner rather than outer experiences. It was a disciplined life of study and retreats. I also had many precious opportunities to attend teachings and courses with His Holiness the Dalai Lama over the years. So, although there was not much time to paint, I think those experiences had a profound influence on me as a person and how the painting would later develop. It also turned out to be good preparation for the essentially solitary life as an artist. As I mentioned in the foreword to this exhibition, I am lucky enough to live very close to the wonderful gardens at Aberglasney. During the first lockdown, it was closed to the public, and so hardly anyone was able to see all the flowers blossoming that spring. 20,000 bulbs were planted over the winter, which made spring 2021 very special. It was so moving, and I will never forget seeing all that colour and joy and the literally thousands of tulips. As you can see from this exhibition, it was the inspiration for many paintings. Over these 2 difficult years, we have all come to appreciate the simple, everyday things more than ever before. I hope you enjoy looking at the paintings, maybe even in the gallery itself, and hope they convey something of the quiet intensity of that time.